place would serve the function of a temple. There are some places still, for instance in Sri Khanda, where Narahari Sarkar lived, that there they have a beautiful Panchabatika, they call, with all the where there are several trees, and now they built of course a temple there and so on and so forth. But that particular area was the sacred area of the village, and then later on they developed it a little bit. Anyway, Purnamasi lives outside the cowherd village, and she's there. She has her banyan tree, and she has a little thatched cottage, and there she's performing her whatever tantric sadhana or something that she's doing, but she knows the magic spells. And Radharani goes to her, and Krishna goes to her if they have any problem. Just like last night, Krishna said, well, I'm going to go to Purnamasi and she'll help me out. Right? Now, in the original story, Mukara and Purnamasi were one character. They didn't differ. And Purnamasi only was the evolution of the story of Krishna in the tradition. Purnamasi is only from the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Rupa Goswami either invented her or he just like he made out of Radharani, he made Radha and Chandrabali two people. So he made it, and he took Burai, the old lady, and he made her into several characters. In the original, in Chandidas, I think I talked to you about Gita Govinda before. In Gita Govinda, there's just Radha and Krishna are the only characters, and then you have the go-between, you have the duty. So in Chandidas, there are more characters, because Maya Yashoda is there and some other characters are there, but they're all very minor. They don't play a big role. The only real important characters in the story are the old lady and Radha and Krishna. And the old lady she's Radharani's grandmother, and also by the same token she's Krishna's aunt or something. It comes out like that. No, she's Burai. Anyway, doesn't really matter so much. She's related to both Krishna and Radha. So she's always the go-between. She's trying to arrange for their happiness, their happy meeting. So, don't know how I ended up over there. Anyway, so we were going on. So he's saying here that by yoga power alone, we don't get Krishna, don't get Radha, don't get Krishna. He's talking about Krishna. Alakshito, na alakshito sahasa, alakshito na sahasa, purushasya tasya. Krishna is not so easily recognized by them. So iti tapo rupa bhaktya pradur bhavitopi vraja bhaktavan neti na iti madhuryotkarshena yathartyena cheti artha. So this is really basically what I was just saying. So he's saying that lakshito, so he's saying that that tapo rupa bhaktya, bhakti that has the characteristic of tapasya. Pradur bhavitopi, even if you can make Krishna appear through bhakti that is predominantly of the character of tapasya, it's not like that of Braja Bhakti. It's not going to be the same as the Braja Bhakti. And that shows that, again, that Madhurya is superior. So he's going to Madhurya is superior, because you can't, so what does it mean? Tapo Rupa Bhaktya. So now, when you're in one of the characteristics of Vidhi Bhakti, and also, in the West also, we have some of that. If it doesn't, what did we say? No pain, no gain. Right? If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work. If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work, or something like that. The idea is that that there has to be pain for gain. That if we want to make progress, we have to suffer. That there's some, we have to make, so tapasya. But if it's accented to the tapasya. For instance, when I was first in ISKCON, then they told that we heard about Chaturmasya. So I thought I have to do Chaturmasya. I have to do Chaturmasya like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati did Chaturmasya. Only eating unspiced khichdi, in the yoga mudra. I can't eat with my hands. I have to eat directly with my mouth off the plate. And then you can, and because when you do that, you can only eat as much as your stomach can't. Because once your stomach gets to a certain fullness, you can't bend over anymore. So you can't reach down. So that's an automatic limit on the amount that you can eat. So eating once a day that much, I never did the whole 4 months like that. I could never manage. I tried so many times. So that's tapo rupa bhakti. You think that somehow that the tapasya is going to make the bhakti work. You see, I think that the tapasya itself is somehow, and actually this error, this misunderstanding runs through our sampradaya quite a bit. We see many people, where people are rewarded for their intense tapasya. And even in Brajake Bhakat by Obial Kapoor, where he gives many stories of Vaishnavas, he tells several stories like this, including the guru of Jagadanada Das Babaji, and he said he was going to commit suicide. He tied his foot to a big stone and was going to throw himself into Radha Kund and drown himself. And that after of course he'd been performing austerities for a while, he says, I'm going to have austerities, I'm going to perform austerities so that I can get Radharani's darshan. That Radharani will come and give me her darshan.
It's going to defile Radharani.
I think so too, yeah, I don't like that either. and Ramakrishna Pandit Baba also did something like that. He said, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to just do Purush Charan, I'm going to chant my mantra until Radharani gives me her darshan. I'm not going to, I don't care, nothing, I'm not going to do anything else, I'm not going to eat, I'm not going to sleep, nothing, just I'm going to sit here and chant. And finally they say he got darshan. So, but here he's saying that if somehow or another you can't force, you can't force Radharani. What is that? Forcing Krishna, forcing Radharani to come and give you their darshan? What kind of bhakti relationship is that?
Quite masculine.
Thank you very much. It's exactly right. You're exactly right.
Because he probably starved to the point where he lost practically consciousness of his ego anyway, for sure.
Well, I mean, I think that all these different kinds of approaches will, they may have some benefit. I mean, I don't deny, but I think the main benefit is that they show you that they're useless.
Well, they purify the body, though.
Well, I mean, purifying the body does not necessarily mean that it's what you call krishra. The word is krishra tapasya. Krishra. The word is a nice word in Sanskrit. Krishra. You know this word, Jagadananda? Krishra. Krishra, the double CHRA. Krishra tapasya. That you're really doing stuff that's hard on your body. And Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, he says, if and it's an interesting concept also. He says you're inflicting pain on the Lord within. If you perform tapasya, then you're actually inflicting pain on God Himself, who is within your body. That's a concept to consider. Even though, of course, we would say that's ridiculous. But I mean, Krishna Himself is saying it. So what does it mean? It means really that that the Atma and the Paramatma are so close together as a unit that if you yourself are making yourself suffer, that the Paramatma is also not really suffering, but he's but yes, suffering because of your suffering. He's suffering because of what you're inflicting on yourself. So that's he says that you inflict suffering on God in your own body or on God in the other body. So you actually, when you inflict pain on somebody else, this is the consciousness. We see God present in everyone. So if you inflict pain on somebody else, you're not just inflicting pain on another human being. You're not just you can't reduce that other human being to something less than the embodiment of Krishna Himself. Sarvatra Samman Kori Jani Krishna Adhisthana. That everybody is that Krishna is residing within everybody's body. So therefore, an offense to an individual, an offense to another jiva, is also an offense to God Himself. So, what to speak of in your own? It applies to yourself too. It applies to yourself as well. We talk about, people often talk about loving yourself. We don't, we have a little bit of a nuance on that. We say, okay, love yourself, but don't love your false ego. Don't make a mistake of thinking that loving yourself means to love your own negative characteristics. Don't become attached to your own foolishness and think that your foolishness is justifiable out of self-love. Yes.
One question I wanted to ask before.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You were speaking about Prataparudra, but also he was criticized because of.
Because of that.
Also Mahaprabhu, as a sannyasi, the other sannyasis were looking at him. He was like, they also were criticizing him because he was like crying and singing. Female. Yeah. So can you speak about this? How this?
Well, that was because exactly this actually just confirms my point. I don't have to go into great detail, but that Mahaprabhu was taking that emotional approach, maybe exaggerating it even, you could say, and the sannyasis, because the idea that you can achieve God through your own personal effort includes not only yoga, which I was talking about, hatha yoga, but it also includes the intellectual research. You think that you can prove or disprove God. I mean, everyone tells that story that when Yuri Gagarin was the first one in outer space, and then the communists, because they had atheistic philosophy, they asked him, "Well, you're up there in outer space. Can you see God?" Ha ha ha! So of course, he answered, of course, "Well, no, I don't." So everyone, they got a big laugh out of that. But that just proves, that through intelligence, in this particular case, lack of intelligence. It's not that intelligence, just a question of subordination, that's all. It's just a question of the right ordering of things. So when we say that Krishna subordinates himself to Radharani, symbolically, it means that the masculine is subordinate to the feminine. And it means that intelligence, effort, all those different characteristics that that are associated with the masculine, there's nothing wrong with them in themselves, but they are to be subordinated to the principle of love and to the principles of relationship. I mean, the ideas of particularly these kinds of qualities that are associated with the feminine relationship. Radhishyam. Okay, let's stop there.
I have a doubt.
Oh, so yata tena chetyata. Yes, go ahead now.
You're saying that Purnamasi, you're asking the question if she was made up by Rupa Goswami, if I understood.
Well, I'm not asking. I don't know of any prior. I don't know of any prior reference to Purnamasi as a character before Rupa Goswami.
But by that you're saying that this Vaishnava history is our pranam for our evidence for determining these things. But I am accepting that we have praman from the Vaishnava scriptures and the acharyas.
Well, look, I this is something that because I spent some years doing research in a Western university, so I accept this approach, not necessarily as a final conclusion, but it's that the point is that you can make a kind of an analysis based on history, on historical data, and you see how things evolve and how things develop. Now, is it necessary for us to, is it helpful to us? This is a question that I ask myself. Is it helpful to us to know this or to not know this? Now, for instance, we say that there's no doubt in the Gaudiya Vaishnava's mind, we have a sense of history. We have a sense of history. We have a sense of history that there was Buddha, and there was Shankaracharya, then there was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in between Shankara and Chaitanya there was Ramanuja and Madhva and so on. And we see that there was a development in the presentation of Vaishnava philosophy throughout those things. We don't have a difficulty with that kind of historical approach. So my interest was honed by looking at the different texts. What do we have? For instance, where is Radha historically speaking in terms of scriptural evidence? Where do we find where does Radha's name appear historically? Radha's name, you can find it here and there in some verses, quite old verses. I think the first mention is in the 6th century or something like that. Not to say that it wasn't existing before that, but these are the, in some ways Indian history is very difficult to make out. Things aren't dated properly, and it's not like you're getting hard evidence most of the time. But by the same token, we Vaishnavas have been presented with a confused understanding of history as well. We get artificial dates, 5,000 years for the Bhagavatam and things like this, which really throw off, which really kind of distort our understanding of history. So is it better to have a more intellectually or rationally verifiable understanding of history, or should we just go with the flow and accept, arbitrarily dates picked out of a hat? If we say that the Bhagavatam appeared 5,000 years ago, when there's very little concrete evidence to support that kind of thing. So, it's not that we know exactly who and when the Bhagavatam was written, but for instance, something like that Vyasadeva wrote the Bhagavatam. If you have a different date, well, people say Vyasadeva is still living in the Himalayas somewhere, and these things kind of. There's one guy, at Jiva, right? This fellow, I don't like to criticize, but sometimes I'm too much of a ISKCON person. I'm sorry, but this fellow that comes, he claims to have been initiated by the Kriya Yogi Babaji. So now there's this mythical character, Babaji, living in the Himalayas, who's been living there for thousands of years, and sometimes people see him. So he claims that he was initiated directly by this Kriya Yoga Babaji, and but he was initiated into the Ramanuja Sampradaya. Yeah. So they wear the Ramanuja tilak, and then he puts a special little dot there to show that he's not quite a real Ramanuja or something like this. So now this guy, if he becomes a successful preacher and makes thousands of disciples, and then becomes an important figure historically, from now 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, or 300 years from now, people are going to accept that story as true. His disciples are going to, just like in Hit Hari Vangsha, we're talking about Hit Hari Vangsha, that he wrote the Radharasa Sudhanidhi, right? So now
You're very tight with that.
He said he wrote it when he was 6 months old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so he was just a baby in the cradle, rocking back and forth, and Radharasa Sudhanidhi was coming out. You see, and so and in their parampara, this is gospel truth. This is the truth. So now, I can say, please don't make me believe this. For me, this is just them thumbing their nose at the people who say that Prabodhananda wrote it. They're saying Hit Hari Vangsha wrote it when he was 6 months old. Our Acharya is so great. Our Acharya is so fantastic. He didn't need to be a pundit, an educated person. He didn't even have to know how to talk. So, what are you going to do? If I come and I speak to one of the disciples and I say to him, my dear brother, you don't expect me to believe this, do you? Yeah. So this is the way that legends and stories come out. So we try, we to some extent at least, we need to be respectful of the facts. And that's my opinion. We have to be respectful of that. And actually, for me, what it does, it adds light. When you see how things have developed, how things have evolved, then, in a sense, because I was having this discussion with Manjari, right, at the Rupa Goswami conference a few months ago. The Rupa Goswami conference, I gave a paper on Rupa Goswami and the Gita Govinda. So I was trying to explain this. And this article is now being published in the Journal of Vaishnava Studies. So I was trying to say that Rupa Goswami, what did he take from Jayadev? I mean, we can actually look at the Ujjwal Nilmani and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and see what verses he's quoted from Gita Govinda and analyze how he's looked at those verses from Jayadev, what he's taken from Jayadev, what he's considered significant from Jayadev. And then if we look at that in the context of his overall philosophy, then we can see the role that Gita Govinda plays in influencing Rupa Goswami's thought. So now that's one aspect of Rupa Goswami. But Rupa Goswami because Rupa Goswami is actually a great thinker. Now, we tend to reduce that when we say, if you say to me that, he was inspired by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and it all just kind of happened automatically. Are you glorifying Rupa Goswami more by glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the place of Rupa Goswami? Are you actually really glorifying Rupa Goswami more by not understanding what his contributions are? The better you understand his contributions, the better you understand the originality of his contributions, the better you understand what it was that he was doing. I mean, to some extent we already know that, right? We know that that this idea of 5 rasas rather than 9 rasas or 8 rasas or whatever that was in the tradition before Rupa Goswami, that this is an original contribution that he made. The idea of 5 rasas. We may not, but if you understand that this is his original and significant personal contribution, then you look at it with a little bit more gravity than if you just simply accept it as is. He's coming and making an original. If somebody comes and makes an original contribution, for instance, Newton came along and put a formula to the law of gravity. So that is his original contribution. We know that it's his original contribution and we glorify him for it, even though he himself is saying, I stood on the shoulders of giants. Right? So in the same way, Rupa Goswami, he's coming along, he's saying, I'm standing on the shoulder of giants. I'm standing on the shoulder of the giants, Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm standing on the shoulder of the giant Bharat Muni. I'm standing on the shoulder of the giant Jayadev. I'm standing on the shoulder of the giant Chandidas. He's standing on the shoulders of all these giants, and he's inspired to recreate Krishna Lila in a original and important way. If you see that, there are many things that people don't really quite understand. We were told that this is one continuous idea that goes back 5,000 years, and we don't realize that actually this is something that has been evolving for 5,000 years. That it's been going on, developing, and it's supposed to be true to some essential realization that's there in the Shruti, in the Upanishads, but at the same time it's something that's not found in the Upanishads. Shruti vimudhyameva, that it's something that the Shrutis are searching for but never finding. Just like Lakshmi Devi is doing tapasya for 60,000 years, which fits into what we were just reading in the thing. She's doing tapasya, trying to force a realization of this lila, but you can't do it through tapasya. That's Aishwarya. That's going to it's the wrong approach. So, you know, so Rupa Goswami's original contributions are better analyzed in the context of what went before. Now, so that's my personal viewpoint. But I think that it also helps to save us, protect us from, it also protects, on the one hand, for me personally, it makes me amazed at Rupa Goswami's glorious contribution. It's not just what Rupa Goswami did was not just poetics and things, but there's psychology there, important insights into human psychology, and that's really for me what I think should be followed up more than anything else.
But isn't it like that we somehow we believe that Rupa Goswami, he enters the Leela, he sees something, and then he is writing down.
Okay, well that's a good point. Now, yeah, all right. That's yeah. And what we've been saying here, you know, when I say Saki Vistariya or Saki Aswada, right? What we're doing is we're following in the footsteps of Rupa Goswami. But I've been trying to say in these classes, and saying that you are creating your own Leela. Now you're following Rupa Goswami. But when you follow Rupa Goswami and you start to, and you, with faith, you continue in that, you believe, then you actually believe in your own imagination. That's the point. You start to believe your own imagination. You know, that this is going on, and I'm there, you know, you're making it up in your mind, but what comes first? Is it inspiration or is it your own making it up? Are you making it up or are you being inspired? Is it Krishna's revelation or is it your mind, mental creation? Now, if it's if you're not afraid, you see, allow your mind freedom to enter into the Leela, and let the
more in the point of view that my realization is unique because my point of view inside the Leela is unique. You
Yes.
know? My position is unique.
Yes.
I see a different.
right, because you are.
Another jiva is on a different. Sees
Exactly.
differently, you know?
So this is the point. Just like Krishna is in your heart, he's also in my heart, but your Krishna and my Krishna are not the same.
Right.
Because your Krishna is taking care of you and my Krishna is taking care of you.
Yeah. And our relationship. Our relationship is individual or unique. Your relationship.
Yeah. But still, because there's a unity of Krishnas. That's still the connection between us is real.
Yes.
And the connection between you, individual jiva, and me, individual jiva, is a real connection because we're connected in that way. And as Vaishnavas, even though our point of view might be distinct, still we belong to one family. We belong to one family. We belong to the family that adores Radha. We belong to the family that believes in the madhurya, the sweetness of the divine.
Also a Veda, like
These are all Achinta Veda tattvas.
So can you speak a little bit about how Radha and the gopis are strong and powerful? They're not even, and it's still feminine. It's still. but
Well,
it's
the
not
things, yes.
exactly
So that the
sweet.
main. Well, I'm not going to talk too much because we're already over time. But the main thing about that is man. So this quality of man. So now the man is an interesting word. The word mana means weight, right? Or value. In some cases it means close to what artha means. That mana means measure, right? So now when Radha has her man, that means that she, you know the word man in the Leela, that Radharani,
I've heard you
yes,
use it, yeah.
yeah, okay, well the mana, so Radharani